Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It's Monday morning, the 22nd of April. In this video, we're going to talk about two missing children in Tennessee. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, who has been missing for almost 2 months, and Summer Moon Utah Wells, who has been missing for over 34 months, almost 3 years. Apart from living in the same state, Summer in the northeast corner of Tennessee, and then Sebastian in the middle portion of Tennessee, about 10-15 miles north of Nashville. The two cases are both similar, yet very different. And I'm not here to talk about the similarities and differences of the two cases. You can look at those and judge those for yourself. But there's one thing that both of these cases have in common, and that is just the amount of speculation, some of it really wild, that's developed. Summer, obviously, has been going on way longer, and some of the theories that have come out from Summer's case, well, I've probably forgotten more than I remember, to be honest. But anyhow, there's some very very things going on. Very strange things being said. So, without further ado, let's go. Let's talk with Sebastian's case. Now, on Saturday, there was a vigil for Sebastian. Chris and Katie Proudfoot didn't attend, although Chris did turn up and spoke to Seth. Depending on who you talk to, you know, they were either confronting each other or they were amicably talking. Pick a side. But Seth said this to camera.
Me and Chris are putting our differences aside. It's not about our egos. It's about finding Sebastian. Me, Chris, and Katie will begin working together. And if everybody else could just off and put your egos aside, help us find our son. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers is the goal of this shit.
So he said all of the parents now are going to start working together. So, of course, Seth is the biological father, Katie's the biological mother, and Chris, Katie's husband, is stepdad. All right, we all know this, don't we? You've been following this case as long as I have. You know all the ins and outs, you know all the people. So they're going to start working together. So that set the internet alight a little bit. I didn't talk about it yesterday, but what does it actually mean? Going to start working together and everyone else can just F off. So I think people trying to interfere, possibly, that's what he meant, can just F off. But then, something really strange, very surprising, given what Seth had said on Saturday evening, was that literally a few hours later, on Sunday morning, Seth turns up on Peter Hyatt's channel. Peter Hyatt is the purported language analysis expert. I don't follow Peter's channel. I've watched a couple of his videos on Sebastian. I've seen a bunch of clips. And it seems to be that one of his dominant theories is that Katie locked Sebastian out and then he disappeared, like he ran away. Can't discount it. I don't think it's likely, but I've talked about that quite a bit in my Facebook group. Seth sat for 24 minutes listening to Peter, while Peter gave a monologue of his usual theory. They're locked out, or other ideas around that. Peter said this.
And is there anyone present that would like to live under stepfather's rule, from what we've heard?
No.
From what we've heard out of his own mouth? Is there anyone that would say, hey, sounds like a good parent to me? Would anyone let him babysit your cat? Some comments from you, Seth.
I was pretty much here just to listen to you.
Okay.
You have a lot more experience and stuff, and I appreciate you having me on the panel, and I appreciate your insight. And
Does any of it sound crazy to you?
No. I was married to her for a long time, and you're right on a lot of key factors. You're right on. You know, I believe that she did not open up at the beginning. her body language while I was there. She's not telling everything. I just don't know how long she's going to continue before she decides that she's going to unburden herself.
That sounds a lot like them working together, doesn't it? Well, you could say that Seth is, infiltrating behind enemy lines. He's going to watch and wait, and he's going to pick up on all of those subtle cues and secret conversations. You could say that, but if your plan was to infiltrate enemy lines by stealth, then you wouldn't go on a YouTube channel and say what he just said, would you? No. Very odd. Overnight, did Seth change his mind? In the spirit of getting along, you would think Seth would be a little bit more discreet. Don't come at me in the comments, guys. I don't think Seth had anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance. But then again, I don't think Chris and Katie did either. But if you've been following my channel, you'll know what my top theories are. Talked about it just yesterday, in fact. Go and check out my past videos if you're new to my channel. None of us knows what happened to Sebastian, but personally, I do not believe that any of the parents are involved. There's red flags, there's bad blood, horrible things that have gone on in the past, but none of it, in my opinion, equates to them actually doing something directly that resulted in the disappearance of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. None of us knows what happened to Sebastian, but in situations like this, where we have absolutely no idea what happened, we take the few facts we know and we build a theory around it. But as I've consistently said throughout the Summer Wells case of almost 3 years, you can't just take the information that agrees with your chosen theory. You've also got to try to dispute your theory. You've got to work as hard to try to dispute it as you work to support it. And that's what the majority of people don't do. They feed into their own confirmation bias. It's happened all along in Summer's case. It's happening again in Sebastian's case. There are some pretty wild theories out there. Last week I had the, Katie and Chris were in the military, therefore they've got cloaks of invisibility theory in my comments. I made a video about that on my other channel, Michelle Walks, if you want to go and check that out. It's experimental technology, alright guys? Yeah, they're at the cutting edge. They just happen to have in their closet 2 nicely fitting cloaks of invisibility. I don't think so. People embracing the wild, but yet refusing to consider the more simple Occam's razor, anybody. That brings me nicely on to Summer Wells. Before I went out for a walk, I was listening to Prayer Garden of America. Now, it's been a long time since Prayer Garden has been a suggested video, so she was obviously doing something right. But I was going to listen to a little bit more before I made this video, but it seems to have disappeared. The last one she did was 4 days ago. I don't know where it's gone. However, she had a phone call with a man who allegedly used to know Don Wells, Summer's dad, when they lived in Arkansas, when he was married to Pam. And this man, we've got absolutely no way to know whether he actually knew Don or he's just some random lunatic. But anyway, this man said that 3 children went missing in Arkansas where Don was living. And then Don himself went missing. 3 children went missing. I don't know what time span. And then Don went missing. Well, he's not missing. He's living at large up until recently on YouTube, so anyhow. But he said that Don was sacrificing children. Yeah, sacrificing. Some form of cult worship and sacrifice. And that could have happened to Summer. Now, it's not the first time that Summer being sacrificed has come up. And for some, the idea of, some kind of satanic cult worship, sacrifice, siphoning all the blood out of a child would be just as wild as Katie and Chris Proudfoot having cloaks of invisibility and disappearing Sebastian that way. I don't think it's quite the same, because ritualistic sacrifices do happen. Not very often, but it's not unheard of. Do I think Summer was sacrificed? My opinion, no. Do I think Don Wells is some kind of cult worshipper? Well, unless you want to call the Seventh-day Adventist Church a cult, and a lot of people do, then I don't think so. Because even though it's nearly 3 years since Summer disappeared, we all watched on in the early days. And yes, there were red flags about, I'll see her in the resurrection and that kind of thing. But there's nothing in the verbiage that he used to me at that time that would denote that he was into human sacrifice. Is it a secret cult? Well, how do you recruit new members if it's completely secret? Look, I'm not poo-pooing the idea. Anything's possible. Do I think this man that was on Prayer Garden's channel knows that Don was sacrificing children? No, I have to say, no. Do I think Don was sacrificing children? I don't think so. Now, when something occurs, unusual event, an unusual, sudden, traumatic event, like a child going missing, everybody wants to seek the causes of those events because it's an evolutionary mechanism. It's survival. If you can work out how horrific events in your environment or that you know about happen, then you can work to avoid it in your own life. It's survival. It's called attribution theory. It's been known in psychology since the 1940s. We all do it. We all want to know what happened. It's natural for us to want to know what happened. The more sudden, the more traumatic, the more we search for answers. And that's what we're all doing, isn't it? And usually, if you take Occam's razor, if you've got two competing theories, usually it's the one with the least amount of steps, the simpler one, probabilistically, most likely to have happened. But then, just occasionally, you get a case where nothing's simple. Let's take the Delphi case, the 2017 murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German from Delphi in Indiana. And nothing in that case is simple. The case went completely unsolved for nearly 6 years. And then, in October of 2022, a CVS worker, Rick Allen, was arrested. No criminal records, just a normal guy, had continued to live in the town of Delphi, which has only got 3,000 inhabitants, working at CVS, and not one person in those nearly 6 years had called him in to the police, even though there's a video of the man who is likely to have been the killer, or at least one of the killers. That in itself make sense. But little bit of evidence that Richard Allen was actually there at the scene, if you believe the science into the unspent round from a Sig Sauer P226 that was found at the crime scene. But since September of last year, we've heard about another theory, the defence's idea of what happened. And this is Odinism. In its most extreme form, it's just good old racism, good old white supremacy. Well, they've taken the noble ancient religion of Old Norse and they've bastardized it in a way to suit their racist ends. They worship Odin and they carve runes, like the old runic language that they want to learn. And at this crime scene, there were some sticks on Abby and Libby's bodies that were fashioned into probable runes. And what looks like an F, which could be the rune Fehu, left in Libby's blood on a tree near where the bodies were found. And the defence's theory is that a group of Odinists were the real killers. Which sounds wilder to you? The Odinism or Richard Allen? It's divided, but less than a month we will have a trial. Hopefully, at least, we'll have a trial and we'll see the evidence from both sides laid out there. All right, so how does this relate to what happened to Sebastian and what happened to Summer? Perhaps the most simplest explanations for both of them is that they wandered off. Sebastian was 15, but he had more like, according to his dad, a mental age of about 10. He's autistic, but he has 6q27 chromosomal deletion syndrome, which can create some intellectual disabilities, although Sebastian is very clever in other ways. He's just not very socially skilled. Summer was only 5 when she disappeared, and kids do the darndest things. On both sides, Sebastian's side and Summer's side, all the parents have said their child would never wander away. But in both cases, we've had neighbours who've said, we have seen that child wandering about. We have seen that child out and about. So who do you believe? Do you believe the parents? I suppose you believe the parents if you choose to believe them, if it fits your theory. Or do you believe the neighbours? I don't know. Well, there's one thing that strikes me about both of these cases. Why is it that it's easier to believe the wilder theories, for at least some of you, than it is to believe the most simple? Ask yourself that question, and I'll leave you with that. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys. Noodle.